All right, welcome everybody to week, 13 or 14, something like that. Spring break messed everything up. So let's continue our conversation about corporate censorship today. Last time we looked at the rules for Pinterest, and in the intervening week, some interesting things have happened in regards to Twitter. Elon Musk, prior to break, had bought like a 9% stake in Twitter, ostensibly to encourage its free speech. And part of the deal they offered him was a board seat in exchange for him not buying more than 15% of the company. And since that time, he has turned it down and made an offer to buy out the entire company. And the Twitter board turned it down, saying it would be bad for the company for Elon to own it. So, interesting times we live in. So, I thought it'd be interesting to go through the Twitter rules as well and talk about maybe some high profile cases involving Twitter and maybe compare it to the Pinterest rules. If you remember last time, Pinterest allows harassment against groups they have designated as acceptable targets, a practice I find to be rather horrific. Socially acceptable target is actually a TV trope. So basically, there's this notion that some groups are okay to make fun of, right? And I've never been really a fan of this notion, right? Like back in the 80s, it was blonde jokes and Polish humor and things like that. And kind of bugs me because, the jokes about Polish people come from World War II. There were all these memes about like Polish knights charging German tanks with lances and things like that, and they're not true. Like the Poles had a modern army. I mean, they had horses, but so did the Germans. I mean, the Germans had more horses than they had cars in World War II, from what I recall. And basically, England and France had guaranteed the freedom of Poland if Hitler invaded, and Hitler invaded, and they did nothing. I think they dropped some supplies or something like, hey, prayers, good luck, And then the third major ally, the Soviet Union, invaded Poland alongside of Hitler, and that's something that a lot of people don't know about, is that Stalin and Hitler were allies, because they jointly invaded Poland together and carved up the country between themselves with the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, right? And and so basically, in order for England and France to feel less bad about not helping the country they had guaranteed the freedom of, they said, well, they're all morons, they're all, backwards, they're just stuck in the medieval time period and stuff like that. And so there are all these Polish jokes that, let's see here. Irish Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans. Let's see if there's any examples on here. No. Yeah, so back in the 80s and 90s, the Polish were an acceptable target, right? And nowadays it's not defined by Pinterest who the acceptable target is, but apparently they have acceptable targets. Somewhere written down on a notepad somewhere in Pinterest's office is the list of people that you can threaten and harass and, say bad things about. So, never been a big fan. So let's go through Twitter's rules instead. Does anyone else, do you guys know what I'm talking about? You've been kind of quiet on chat. The notion that a society has certain groups that it's okay to pick on. I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying, are you familiar with that concept, right? So, French mock the Americans mock the French. For a while we had freedom fries instead of French fries in our capital and stuff like that. The Italian city-states to this day, like a lot of them don't like each other. Like I was in Florence, and they don't like the Pisans very much for some reason. Well, I mean, I know the reason, but centuries-old tradition of hating each other. Yeah, okay. So let's go through Twitter and see if they have the same thing. Violence, and I'd like your opinion on it, because Elon Musk did a tweet saying Elon Musk, Twitter, free speech. He ran a poll saying, does Twitter uphold its commitment to free speech? And something like 70% of them said it doesn't. Right. So let's see if we can do better. I don't know. Let's crowdsource this from the audience and see if we can do better than Twitter on their rules for tweeting, or maybe it's just a matter of enforcement. I don't know. Let's go through this. So you may not threaten violence against an individual or a group of people. We also prohibit the glorification of violence. Learn more about violent threat and glorification of violence policies. Okay. So on chat, give me a thumbs up if you think this policy is good. Thumbs down if you think there's something you would want to change about it. And I don't know exactly what glorification of violence means. I mean, does playing Call of Duty count? Let's find out. Inspires... could inspire others to take place in similar acts of violence. We have a policy against content that glorifies acts of violence in a way that may inspire others to replicate those violent acts and cause real offline harm, or events where members of a protected group, there we go, were primary targets or victims. Under this policy, you can't glorify, celebrate, praise, or condone violent crimes, violent events where people were targeted because of membership in a protected group, where the perpetrators of such acts would find glorification include praising, celebrating, condoning statements such as, I'm glad this happened, this person is my hero, I wish more people did things like this, or I hope this inspires others to act. Violent acts committed by civilians that resulted in death or serious physical injury, murders, mass shootings, terrorist organizations or violent extremist groups as defined by our terrorism policy, and violent events that targeted protected groups such as the Holocaust and various genocides. What is not a violation of this policy? Violent acts by state actors where violence is not primarily targeting protected groups. Okay. So, we got 2 thumbs up. We got 13 people on stream right now, and we had 4 responses. So, Simran, 6 counting Simrans. Lynn, James Lynn, you here? You're one of the first people on chat. Eric Yang. Yeah. So, moving on. Terrorism, violent extremism. You may not threaten or promote terrorism or violent extremism. I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean they're threatening terrorism. Like, I'm going to get you, terrorists. Let's see what terrorism is. Extremist group. Let's see here. Violent extremist groups, individuals who affiliate with and promote their illicit activities. Engage in or promote, jeopardize physical safety and well-being of those targeted. Our assessments are informed by national and international terrorism designations. Okay, so basically, as well as our violent extremist group and violent organizations criteria. So, a violent organization are those that meet all of the below criteria, all 2 of them. A collection of individuals with a shared purpose, and they have systematically targeted civilians with violence. Okay. You guys, thumbs up, thumbs down on their terrorism policy. Basically, if the State Department designates a group as a terrorist organization, then Twitter will delete your tweet if you promote it or threaten to promote it. I don't know. Sunshine. Okay. can affiliate with and promote the illicit activities of a terrorist organization. Okay. So like if ISIS recruiters go onto Twitter, they'll presumably be removed. Whether or not that's followed, I don't know. Okay, so child sexual exploitation. We have zero tolerance for child sexual exploitation on Twitter. I don't actually want to click on that link because it would depress me. Let's assume that's okay. Abuse and harassment. You may not engage in targeted harassment of somebody or incite other people to do so. This includes wishing or hoping that somebody experiences physical harm. What do you think? Seem reasonable? Feel safe expressing your unique point of view. We believe in freedom of expression and open dialogue, but that means little as an underlying philosophy if voices are silenced because people are afraid to speak up. In order to facilitate healthy dialogue on the platform and empower individuals to express diverse opinions and beliefs, we prohibit behavior that harasses or intimidates or is otherwise intended to shame or degrade others. Yeah, Drew has a good point. Like, this happens all the time on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, we prohibit behavior that harasses or intimidates or is intended to shame or degrade others. Yeah, let's just pull up, I don't know. Who gets, say, Ted Cruz, senator from Texas. Let's see. I'm sure all of the responses to him are nice, right? Here we go. He is live from there. Let's see. You got no. Okay, let's click on one of these at random. All right. I can't see the responses. I actually don't know what my Twitter password is because I never use it. I don't know. It's interesting. They're not showing the. They're not showing the responses to them. Okay, here we go. When are you buying Twitter? Hope he doesn't. Where do you get your memes from? None of this is too harassing, actually. Not bad. It doesn't have any harassment. Maybe Twitter's better now. I don't know. So I didn't see any like actual harassing things for Elon on there. So didn't know they included jokes in their policies. Is it in there? Yeah, I don't see jokes on it. Okay. So maybe they're better now. I don't know. Okay. Hateful conduct. You may not promote violence against, threaten, harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, caste, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. Threaten, harass. Yeah, I mean, seems a bit redundant because they got violence there, and harassment there, and threatening. But I don't know. I guess they're just doubling down on it. Case discrimination, or caste discrimination, depending on how you pronounce it, is kind of an interesting phenomenon. So India got rid of the caste system a while ago, right? But even to this day, it's still kind of an issue. Has anyone heard about this? Like, people will come to America and they'd be like in a lower caste, and they'll like change their last name, or like, not tell people where they're from, what their family is, things like that, to avoid discrimination, even here in America. Have you guys ever heard of this before? Like, apparently, like, I was reading an article on, I think it was The Atlantic the other day, and I don't know. According to the article, at least, it's a pretty serious problem in the tech industry, right? And so these people are working in like Silicon Valley as very highly paid people, but they like hide the fact that they came from a low caste background in India. So I'm not an expert on the subject, but it does sound like an actual issue. Okay, you may not promote or encourage suicide or self-harm. Yes, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. Sensitive media. You may not post media. So far, we haven't had any disagreements on the Twitter policies, other than some dubiousness as to Twitter not allowing harassment on the platform because, yeah, it's Twitter. Okay, all thumbs up so far. Sensitive media, and for those of you that are watching at home, post your thoughts on it. These are the main things here, and it's not a long document, and we'll just kind of blow through the rest of them. You can't do illegal goods or services. No violence or porn, basically. Excessively gory, whatever that means. Privacy, you may not dox people, basically. You cannot publish or post other people's information without their express permission. And non-consensual nudity, that's the revenge, what's it called? Something. Revenge porn, I think it's called, which is illegal in California, from what I recall. I'd have to look that up, but I think it is. Thumbs up on the privacy section. Thumbs down. What do you think? You guys seem to like Twitter's policies, I guess. Okay. Authenticity, platform manipulation, and spam. You may not use Twitter services in a manner designed to artificially amplify or suppress information. Yeah, and that's kind of funny because they have a bot interface that allow bots to run on Twitter. And so bots can read the Twitter feeds and retweet things and things like that, which automatically, amplifies things. I had a friend who wrote Twitter bots for fun, and he a very left-wing guy, and he basically made a bot that followed a bunch of prominent right-wing people. I think Rush Limbaugh was live at the time and things like that. And he wrote a bot that would just say random like right-wing slogans, like kind of reminds me of an episode of The Simpsons where they have this like AI DJ and it says, "Look at those idiots in Congress who did those dumb things again." And people are like, "Oh man, how's it so well informed on current events?" He would just have it like tweet these like catchphrases and things like that. And he ended up getting like 40,000 followers and things like that in a week or so, just having it like just randomly combine random, right-wing things and generate it. I've done something similar to that as actually one of my homework assignments, if you take me for discrete math. Though I see everything on Twitter that's against the policy. Yeah, I think that's our next topic, is how well they actually do it. But I wrote a Markov chain generator. And basically what it does, you train it on a body of work, Shakespeare, Wu-Tang Clan, Alex Jones, that kind of stuff, the B-movie, things like that. And then it generates sentences in the style of that thing you trained it on. So, do I have Wu-Tang on here? Toadstyle's immensely strong. Yeah, okay. Shrek. How do I not have... okay, that's Hamlet's soliloquy. Yep. Let's run on Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a... Let's make 10 Alex Jones sentences. Alright. The woods I'm aware of. Christian murdering eugenicists. Do you understand that what the mayor of this country, listen, F-head, you've had, you think you're part of that S, and now it's a red level. This is a child, corrupt bureaucrats and all his family, and you want to see, you don't think she's so stop shooting your mind. Talking about this woman, Human Abedin, who's coming after Mao. What are in a bunch of Obama, you my favorite football stadium, mainstream media, you're in the good, oh, we're dealing with a freaking garden hose. Yeah, so he does a lot of, like, rants, and that could very well be something he would say. Oh, we don't run the street, I never back you effing mouth tasting these reasons. Yeah. So he wrote a Twitter bot that basically did that, right? And got, tens of thousands of followers very quickly. So, yeah, that's discrete math, or if you take a stats class, they might teach you about Markov chaining and things like that. Isn't that the guy who said Obama put something in the water to make the frogs gay? Yeah, that's Alex Jones. He's a character. All right, so civic integrity, you may not manipulate elections. Pinterest had something similar to this, right? Actually, pretty darn close to this. You cannot post or share content that may suppress participation or mislead people about when to vote, basically. Because, like, there was a meme that went around saying, like, remember to vote on Wednesday or whatever, elections are on Tuesday. All right, so that is now against Twitter's policies. Misleading and deceptive identities, you may not impersonate people. Synthetic and manipulated media, you may not deceptively share synthetic or manipulated media that are likely to cause harm. In addition, we may label tweets as manipulated. You may not violate copyright and trademark. Okay, so let's just take all these together. Any thoughts on these 4 things? Anyone? That's the end of it. So, if you're bored, we'll move on to something else, but kind of in the middle. What is the upside? What's the downside, Simon? It feels as though these general guidelines can be copied and pasted. Yeah, they seem fairly common between a lot of platforms. I had some more serious issues with Pinterest, I think. Okay, so the question is, like, if Elon Musk takes over, right, which of these rules should be changed? Right? You know what I mean? Like, if he's going to come in to open it up to free speech, what in this is objectionable? Or is it just the enforcement of it? Right? Because, like, we all know of cases where, somebody reported, somebody threatened to kill somebody and they reported it, and Twitter's content review team said, no, it's fine, and vice versa. And so, everybody's got examples of, like, bad moderation, right? The more egregious, Twitter's suspending a Twitter suspended a parody site, which yeah, it's kind of interesting. Twitter's continued ban on the post has no rhyme or reason, only bias. So the Hunter Biden laptop story turned out to be legitimate, right? At the time, Twitter did not know if it was a legitimate story or not. So Twitter saying, we had people from the three-letter agencies saying this looks like Russian disinformation. The New York Post ran a story on Hunter Biden's laptop, which had a bunch of compromising information on it, and Twitter banned the New York Post's account, right? And this is in the lead up to the election, right? And they said you have to delete the tweet, and the Post stayed true to their thing. It's still demanding the Post delete 6 posts linking to reporting, even though anybody can share those stories. Right? And so that isn't, something you can really blame on, like, these moderators on Twitter, they go through thousands of reports an hour, they're going to get some wrong. Like, that made nationwide news, and Twitter maintained the ban on a major media outlet for a while, right? And, the New York Post isn't the most, highly regarded newspaper in the world, but at the same time, they are a newspaper, and Twitter was blocking them in the lead up to the election, which, amounts maybe to, interfering in an election, right? So, you think the policies have good intentions but are executed poorly? I agree to an extent, but when it comes to politics, you can't really speak anyone from speaking their mind or how they feel about it. Yeah, and that's kind of the biggest story on Twitter is, of course, them kicking Trump off the platform, right? Trump was famous for his mean tweets and covfefe and things like that, and Twitter kicked the president of the United States off of Twitter, and so the extent to which these tech companies are taking sides, I don't know if they want to take sides. You know what I mean? Like, I think every time they do something like that, they get called in front of Congress, and it makes them very, I don't think Zuckerberg likes being hauled in front of Congress a couple times, and Dorsey, who doesn't run Twitter anymore, getting hauled in front of Congress and being questioned about why, they're doing things the way they are. I don't know. So let's throw it open. And for those of you that are at home, Elon Musk buys Twitter, let's say. You go to work for him. You're put in charge of content moderation and the rules, right? What rules do you come up with? What changes do you make? And, or is it just a matter of just enforcing them better? Elon's idea, from what I understand, is to have Twitter itself do less deletions of things and more putting power in the hands of the people so they can choose what kinds of things they want to see. So if you want to see glorified violence, then you can turn that on. I'm just spitballing here. There's no real plan that I've read, but I'm just kind of extrapolating from a couple sentences he said, where you could put control of the algorithm, what you see on your feed, and your filtering in your hands instead of Twitter kind of mandating it from above. Echo chamber alert, yeah, and there's a real risk of that, right? Like if you never encounter ideas contrary to your own, then you get a very distorted view of what people believe in the world, right? And the trouble is, like, nothing in Twitter right now actually combats that, because you choose who you follow as it is, and you tend to follow people that agree with you, which is, I think, an inherent problem in social media. I don't even know if it's I don't even know if there's an easy solution to it, other than just burning the whole building down, ban Section 230, which will, that's what gives social media companies the right to exist, because it makes them immune to lawsuits for things that people say on their platforms, right? That's what Section 230 does. If I go onto Facebook and say, hey, screw you, dude, Facebook can't be sued for what I posted on there. That's Section 230. Trump wanted to get rid of it, and if they got rid of it, it would basically make Facebook liable for everything I say, and it would explode in a second. Like, it would completely go out of business. So, some people do want to just burn it down and say no more social media. That's an idea, I guess. Another idea would be to go in the opposite direction, or actually go in the opposite direction from banning it. Embrace Section 230 and just say that Twitter and Facebook and all of these people are a neutral platform, right? Which is also, I think, the direction that Elon is going in, where we talked about this before, where like the phone system doesn't prohibit you from using the phone if you're a socialist, right? Or if you're a Republican. Like, the phone company didn't cut off Trump's phone because he said a mean tweet, right? But Twitter did. And so I think part of what Elon's goal is to do that, right? Just like, it's a neutral platform, anybody can say anything. And there's a lot of people that would disagree with that. They'd say, well, then you're going to allow spammers and harassers and all this other horrible stuff to happen on your platform. So, I don't know. No easy answer that I see. Unless you just, ban, repeal Section 230, take out Facebook and Reddit and Twitter and any web page that has a comment section on it, burn it all down, get rid of, the world's largest companies like that. It's tough because no matter how much freedom you want, it's a double-edged sword and a hill not worth dying on. With freedom of speech comes racism, sexism, and everything else. I feel like these policies could be executed better. It needs to be, but not easily done. I have no idea how I'd be able to enforce one of these. Yeah, I don't envy anybody who works as a content moderator, because it just seems like something that is incredibly bad for your mental health to just spend all day looking at reports of, violence and, all these horrible things. And writing AI to take things down is always going to be flawed. Like Google took down a presidential candidate's ad account when right after the debate because it flagged it for strange activity, and might have hurt her campaign. I don't know. So that's it for that. Maybe we'll open it up for a discussion as far as how the internet should be run. That could be fun. All right. So we got a little short thing here. I checked your midterm scores. Your midterm scores looked pretty good overall. At least I did before the. I think Saturday night I checked it. Presumably the people that did it at the last minute presumably would do a little worse. All right, let's see how you all did on the midterm. Let's check that real fast. What did you guys think of the midterm? Is it reasonable? 80%? Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay. Yeah. 90% was the high point. Yeah, I thought it was pretty easy. 80s and 90s on most of the questions. Ethical frameworks. Maybe I'll put more of those on the final. Flack, yeah, it's Chomsky there. Yeah, the replication crisis, all of these are problems that lead to it. Building more housing, disappointing. Okay, so this one you didn't do well on. This is a deductive argument. All Japanese music is good, Meiko Kaji makes Japanese music, therefore Meiko Kaji makes good music. If the two premises are true, the conclusion must be true. This is a deductive argument. That's what a deductive argument is. It is a certain guaranteed argument. If the premises are true, the conclusion must follow from the premises. There isn't even such a thing as a reductive argument, and 3 people picked that, so I don't know what to say. 5 people picked reductive. That's like one of the options we talked about in class. So, yeah. All right. I enjoyed listening to it in the past, therefore I will enjoy listening to it in the future. Is a classic inductive argument. Inductive arguments reason about the future from the past. Could be wrong. The new CD might be bad. You know. Jury looked at the evidence, found them not guilty. That is a abductive argument. An abductive argument is you weigh the evidence for and against, and you pick the one that is heavier. There's more weight for this one. The truth tables, y'all did pretty well on that. Consensus theory, good. All dogs are cats. All cats are mammals. All dogs are mammals. This is valid reasoning. All dogs are cats. All cats are mammals. Therefore, dogs are mammals. This is valid reasoning. It is not true that dogs are cats, so it is not sound. Okay. And so we still have 22% of people thinking that if a premise is bad, that's invalid. No. You have to look at the logic first. If the logic is good, it is valid. Then you check the premises. A bad premise doesn't make it invalid. It just makes it unsound. It's valid but not sound. If you stay in the sun for too long, you'll get dehydrated. I am dehydrated. I stayed out in the sun too long. This is a affirming the consequent fallacy. I could be dehydrated from not drinking water. Okay? If I stay in the sun, sure, you'll get dehydrated. But I could be dehydrated just from not having drunk water in the last hour or so. So that's, we need to work more on that, I guess. Virtue ethics, good. Correlation, causation, good. Okay. And then for this one, a p-value of less than 0.2 is terrible. You want a p-value of less than 0.05. That is the probability that the results of the paper were due to chance, to put it kind of crudely. And so if it had a 20% chance of being due to chance, then that's not great. And so we typically use 0.05 as the cutoff for believability, though that does go up and down a little bit. Will you be able to see which problems you missed? Okay. So, yeah, let's talk about qualifiers. I'll turn on the answers for you. Okay, so this is a fairly straightforward topic, and something that'll be on your final, presumably. I haven't written it yet, but presumably it will be. So qualifier is a way of sort of adding nuance to a statement. Rather than just saying it's all or nothing, you can say some, or mostly, or kinda, or a lot, things like that. Those are all qualifiers, okay? And qualifiers are the single greatest victim of internet conversations. They get hauled out behind the shed and shot like Old Yeller all the damn time. Okay, every time you have a conversation with somebody online, right? I'm exaggerating, of course. They will typically discard your qualifiers and then treat your statement as an all or nothing. That is the way people argue on the internet most of the time, and it's really frustrating. Okay, so if you say there's basically no supermarkets in San Francisco, they say that's not true. There's a Safeway on Market Street. You know, yeah, that's one. But you said there's no supermarkets. No, I did not say there were no supermarkets. I said there's basically no supermarkets. There's a qualifier there, right? So you're saying there's basically none since there is one, right? Okay, see what I wrote. That's what I said. So qualifiers include none, there exists, almost none, some, generally, almost all, basically, mostly, kinda, sorta, a lot, a little. Okay. Seems like, sure. Seems like is more of a it's a qualifier for confidence. It seems like it'll rain today, right? You're not too confident. Seal shame. It seems like it'll rain. Yeah, sure, that's a qualifier. And so even though it seems like people in media love just using very strong words like, well, why? It's not about that at all. It's about this. Tucker Carlson uses hyperbole all the damn time, right? And that's actually not hyperbole on my part. He uses hyperbole all the time, and it irks me because using qualifiers properly is a big part of precision and being a thoughtful, critical thinker, right? Not misrepresenting the truth. Right, so if 10% of people, I don't know, if 10% of people with red hair are allergic to laundry detergent or something like that, it would be deceptive and misleading to say red-haired people are allergic to detergent, right? Because a minority of them are, right? The proper non-lying way of saying it would be some red-haired people or a few red-haired people, or I don't know, it's another for 10%. A fraction of red-haired people are allergic to laundry detergent, something like that, right? It's ironic that Tucker was born in SF, yeah. And I get why he does it. Like, it makes for good media, and it has nothing to, like, he loves saying, it has nothing to do with this, and it's like, yeah, okay, does it? Yeah. And it's just imprecise speech, right? And when you are a source of information, and I don't want to pick just on Tucker Carlson, CNN basically ran all, all negative stories on Trump, right? They had this constitutional inability to ever say anything good about Trump ever, right? Like, the only time I ever saw CNN say anything positive about Trump was when he interviewed in the Syria crisis in 2017 or something like that. And I listen to CNN like daily, and Fox daily and NPR daily and a bunch of other news sources I check daily. And CNN, like, I played a game with CNN where I would turn it on and count seconds to see how long it would be until they said the word Trump or referred to Trump. And it was usually around 3 seconds, for 4 years. Like, he was very close to all that they talked about. Like, science topics, no. Weather, no. Technology news, no. International affairs, nope. It was basically CNN had this fixation on Trump, and almost all the coverage was completely negative. And, it's like, okay, and they would misrepresent and things like that. So I don't want to pick just on Tucker Carlson. It's a problem with the media because it sells, right? So, basically, when it comes to an argument, you're making a claim supported by evidence. We talked about this before. And there's different standards of evidence to meet when you're making a claim, right? So if we're going to convict somebody of murder and send them to death row, there is a higher standard of evidence that must be met versus like just trying to convince your parents to let you go out at night or something. You know what I mean? So criminal cases in America have a higher standard of evidence than civil cases. So a prosecutor has to make their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So the jury has to be at least like something like 80% certain that somebody committed the crime. All right. Civil cases are based on preponderance of evidence. So in a civil case, you only need to be 51% certain that one side is right, and then you settle, they win. Okay? It's a difference between civil and criminal. So we have different standards of evidence we use in our society. The lowest level would be something called a reasonable suspicion. So if you are a cop and you're running around, you hear a gunshot coming from a car, you can pull them over, right? Because you have reasonable suspicion that a crime took place. You can't arrest them on a suspicion. Maybe the car backfired or something, right? But you can go and check it out, right? If you see somebody like smash a window and climb in, like, well, that's, maybe more probable cause, right? So, yeah, reasonable suspicion means like, I see a person running away from a crime scene. I'm going to go pull them over and take a look, right? So probable cause is, like somebody says, hey, DeGroot is doing a crime, If you have a person calling a police tip line and say so-and-so is doing a crime, then the police have like a probable cause. And that's like 30% certain, something like that. Reasonable suspicion might be like 10% certain that a crime happened. But that's enough for the police to at least stop you and talk to you and stuff like that. One of the big stories that came out recently was that in Japan, cops are like interrogating foreigners on no reasonable suspicion. Something like 65% of all foreigners living in Japan had been interrogated by police just walking down the street. The police would just harass them, right, and ask to see their cards and things like that. So, yeah, if people report that a kid was pulled into a blue van and the police see a blue van driving by, that's enough for them to pull the blue van over and search it. Civil cases require 51% certainty. So preponderance of evidence means that there's more weight. It's abductive reasoning. There's more weight for the plaintiff than against, then the plaintiff wins. If there's more weight for the defendant than the defendant wins. Beyond a reasonable doubt is criminal. You have to be about 80% certain, something like that. I don't think there's actually a number written in law, something like 80-ish%, something like that. There's no good reason to believe otherwise, is one thing that it means. And so, with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the plaintiffs tried saying that beyond a reasonable doubt, Rittenhouse, murdered a guy, right? And he should have dropped his gun and let the guy beat him, right? And the jury went, nah. Yeah. Nah. And they also said he intended to murder because he had a gun on him. And, nah. Who knows what percentage they agreed with the prosecutor, but it did not hit 80%, right? So, that's it for today. So the thing I want you to understand from today are qualifiers, okay? You guys get that? We'll probably do an online discussion. What would you do if you're Elon Musk? And then qualifiers, the victims of the first casualties, first things to die in internet conversations are qualifiers. Okay? So mostly, some, none, a lot, an incredible amount, a strong majority, a weak majority. These are all qualifiers. And it's important that when you want to speak academically and sound academic and I'm not even talking about academia. Like if you're just at a business and somebody says, "Hey, what's our outlook for next month?" You could say, "Well, there's pretty good evidence that we're going to have an uptick in sales next." You always qualify your statements. When you want to be precise and not mislead people with all or nothing policies. Okay, so that's it for today. And thanks for coming out. Hope you all had a good spring break. I got a lot of hiking in myself. I got bitten by mosquitoes, which was a little unfortunate, but other than that, it was a pretty enjoyable spring break. So I will see you all next time on Wednesday. Peace out.